Hello everyone, welcome back to On The Fly. Today we're going to take a look at the most improved teams over the 2022 off season. So when we take a look at this, it is going to be from when the team played their last game to right now. And I think this video does make sense because pretty much all of the big names are now off the board. A lot of the teams have have their rosters frozen in that sort of sense. There are not going to be any big moves coming, hopefully. So I think this makes sense as of right now to make this video. But let me know down below your thoughts, whether or not you think you disagree, you agree with my list, what your top 5 is for the most improved teams. But yeah, we'll just hop right onto it today with the number 5 team. And for me, that is going to be the Washington Capitals. So the Capitals are a team that generally does enjoy success, and they've been pretty good for a long time. But this year, I think they've gotten a lot better than they normally are. Adding players like Marcus Johansson, Darcy Kemper, Connor Brown, Dylan Strome, Eric Gustafsson, and Charlie Lindgren. But one thing you do have to take note of is the fact that they do definitely have losses. Some losses do include Justin Schultz, Michael Kempany, Ilya Samsonov, and Vitek Vanacek. But one of the big things for this team is how well they can fight, especially in the playoffs. When you look at this team, they are built to win in the playoffs, and the one thing that I would be concerned about for the Capitals is their goaltending. Darcy Kemper has had struggles with Colorado. Yes, they won the cup, but when you really look at the goaltender itself, he doesn't play that well in terms of the grand scheme and sort of the rest of the team. He has very good defense in Colorado, so I'm not sure the Capitals are going to be as good as they look on paper right now. But when you get a Stanley Cup caliber goaltender, you get a bunch of other pieces that are going to help you. With Nick Backstrom most likely coming back in mid to late April for that final push into the playoffs, I think the Capitals are going to be a very dangerous team this year, and they're going to be a really underrated team. When you think about the Capitals, you think of that old team with Ovechkin, Backstrom. But this year, I think they're going to very much surprise a lot of teams and really come out flying out of the gate. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the playoffs this year. But with that, we move on to team number 4 with the Anaheim Ducks. So with the Ducks, this is a team that is in a rebuild right now. And I think when you really look at the Ducks, they aren't necessarily going to be your top-end team. This isn't necessarily a list that's all about how good the team's going to be in the future, but they have made quite a few moves to get better this year. Some examples of those include John Klingberg, Dmitry Kulikov, Frank Petrano, Ryan Strome, and Mason McTavish. As for their losses this year, Ryan Getzlaf, Zach Aston Reese, and Sam Steele. So really, it's not a bad loss in terms of the Anaheim Ducks. And really, they've only gotten better. Adding McTavish, who's played very well. We got to see him in the juniors, absolutely dominant. And I really think he's just going to carry that through, getting to play with some more young guys like Comtois, who he's played with before, and really just a whole bunch of other young guns like Zegras, who's going to help him and really propel his game into that next level. I think at the addition of Klingberg too and Kulikov on the back end, it's going to be a decent team for the Ducks. They might even sneak in. Being that young gun team, you have no expectations and still quite a bit of cap space to run around with. So I'm surprised to see the Ducks make another move closer to that trade deadline. But with that, that's why the Ducks are going to be at number 4. Moving on to the number 3 team. By far, probably the most surprising team of them all, I have the Ottawa Senators. And with the Senators, this is a team that I actually think might contend for the Stanley Cup this year. I think they're a really underrated team that's put together a pretty nice thing, nice team. And some of their additions, Cam Talbot, Claude Giroux, Alex DeBrincat. The subtractions, however, are sort of big. Matt Murray, Tierney, Del Zotto, Mete, and Connor Brown. But when you really look at the additions, it definitely is going to propel them into that sort of playoff role. And their losses, yes, it is a long list. But when you look at all the other players that they have supporting that, with Stützle, with Tkachuk, I think they're going to be a team that might actually do pretty well this year. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the playoff spot in a really tough Atlantic division. I think this is going to be the first year where we see Ottawa really contending and being able to put forth at least a quality effort. And I really wouldn't be surprised to see them in the playoffs, doing well in the playoffs as well. Yes, it's a tough division, but if you can get into that Metro division and sort of win that wild card, who knows what can happen. And I think the Ottawa Senators are definitely poised to make a deep run this year. But with that, we're going to move on to team number 2 with the Montreal Canadiens. So with the Canadiens this year, new GM with Ken Hughes, and when you take a look at a player like or a GM like Hughes who wants to make an impact in Montreal in a really big hockey market, what you do is you typically see a lot of new players coming in, a lot of new players coming out, but definitely a team that they want to contend with Price, who's 50-50 coming up for the season. If they can get Price back, I definitely see them being able to make a deep run this year. I don't think we'll see Price back. He might go halfway through the year, who knows. But at the end of the day, I think if the Habs can get a goaltender, which I do expect them to do, I don't see why they can't contend with Ottawa. They've made a lot of big moves this year, adding Slafkovsky, Matheson, Dach, Monahan, Dadonov, and Mitchell Stevens, while only losing Romanov, Petrie, Paling, and Tyler Pitlick. So their losses, yes, Petrie hadn't really turned out for them. He had a great year the year before, but really adding Matheson on the back end I think is going to be really good for the Habs. Dach instead of Romanov. Romanov, yes, good defenseman, but when you get a player like Kirby Dach, you really can't pass that up. Monahan as well, yes, he's a little bit older, but he's definitely going to be a good third-line center for the Habs. Slafkovsky with Suzuki is going to be a great pairing, and I think when you really look at the Habs right now, they look really good. They're just missing one key piece, and that's who's in between the pipes. And if Carey Price can somehow find a way back in between, I think the Habs actually have a shot at winning the Cup this year and definitely being able to contend with some of the bigger teams like the Leafs, the Lightning, even the Panthers, the Bruins, and definitely Ottawa as well. So if Montreal can find their way in between the pipes, maybe getting a good goaltender, they're really lacking that right now. But if they can figure out their goaltending situation, for me, there is no reason why, with the additions they made this year, that they cannot make a Stanley Cup run. And I think when you really look at the Habs, they are definitely a team to watch for. But with that, move on to the final team. The number 1 spot is going to belong to the Detroit Red Wings. And when we take a look at the Red Wings, they have made a lot of big moves. Steve Yzerman, always definitely a guy that's going to want to sort of show off his ability to make trades, to make big signings. And this year was no different. They were able to basically get a player in every position that's an upgrade compared to what they had last year. And in my opinion, that's why they have to be the most improved team heading into the 2022-2023 season. And we take a look at the players that they have. It is Ville Husso, David Perron, Dominic Kubalik, Kopp, Mata, Hag, Pisak. And when you look at that, that's pretty impressive with what they've been able to do, while only really losing to Kaiser, Greiss, Stahl, and Gagne, who aren't necessarily going to be their pride and joy. And really being able to contend, I think this year is a little bit out of the picture right now. But when you look at what they've been able to do, who they've been able to get, with their younger players starting to come up and starting to bloom, I think the Red Wings are going to be pretty good in the next 2 to 3 years. And when we look back here, this is going to be the moment that you remember as the Red Wings are basically restart that dynasty. I think this is the 2022 off season that changes who the Red Wings are and really sort of propels them into that team that we all remember, setting records, setting new postseason records. And I think when you really come down to it, the Red Wings are definitely going to be the winners of the 2022 off season. If you made it this far in the video, thanks for watching. If you'd like to drop a like, if you really like, consider subscribing. Tell all your friends and comment down below your top 5 of the most improved teams of the 2022 off season. Until next time, see ya.